I've already mentioned how this spring's long-lasting cold and frequent rain set my tomato plants back substantially. One of the advantages of having a hoop house and growing tomatoes and cucumbers inside it is the tendency of these plants to do their darndest to catch up quickly in the highly controlled environment. Simply by opening the doors during the day, closing them at night, thereby regulating the temperature at a more steady rate, running irrigation at the roots on the regular, and mulching, I give these plants exactly what they need to grow as quickly as possible, which is necessary in Maine's short growing season. I'm just back from a week-long work trip, and while I was gone, things in the hoop house jump-started their growth. It's exciting to come home to tomato and cucumber plants that are at least 6 inches taller than they were when I left. With that growth comes the task of shoot pruning and trellising. A plant's goal is to reproduce. In the garden, this means producing fruits which contain seeds, which can then be distributed throughout the world by birds, mammals, the wind, etc. In order to grow the best fruits and produce the healthiest seeds, plants need to photosynthesize, and that means they need lots of little solar panels soaking up the sun. Left to their own designs, tomatoes, cucumbers, and truth be told, most plants, will expend a lot of energy growing side shoots or branches to get as much access to space for leaf surface area. The trick with these plants in a hoop house, where you're trying to maximize fruit production and use of vertical space, is to ensure they put all of their efforts into fruit production rather than production of branches that grow out horizontally. Actually, this is true if the tomatoes are out in the field as well. I just find it easier to grow tomatoes inside a hoop house because the season is longer and the temperature and water are more consistent. By pruning off the side shoots, you ensure the tomato plants put more effort into growing its main stem vertically, and a lot more energy goes into the fruit. The drawback with this is that no tomato plant is going to be strong enough to stand up straight when you take away all of its balance and keep the substantial weight of what are hopefully glorious clusters of tomatoes, which can weigh up to 5 pounds, depending on the variety and whether or not you fruit prune, which I don't. So, rather than let the tomato fight a losing battle, trying to expand its stem girth to match that task, it's necessary to provide support upon which it can grow. One thing that is important, whether you're out in the garden, inside a hoop house, or dealing with houseplants on a windowsill, is to remove any plant detritus that fell off or was removed by human hands. All plants, and indeed all living things, are teeming with bacteria just waiting for those plants or animals to get sick or die. If you leave prunings on the ground next to the plants, you're inviting those bacteria to get a jump on things and start attacking the living plants you want to keep. It's basically the same reason we quarantine some people with illnesses instead of letting them hang out with everybody. Tomato side shoots grow at a remarkable rate. Even if you grow nothing but tomatoes in your garden, and even if you don't grow nearly as many as I do here at Nights and Weekends Homestead, you're still going to have a job to do every 3 to 10 days if you want to stay ahead of the side shoots. In my short growing season, and the limited space of a hoop house, the effort is worth it. If you prune often enough, you can pinch off the shoots with your fingers simply by grasping them as close to the node or crotch, which is the point where the leaf branch grows out of the main stem, and snapping the shoot off. I've read advice from some growers that say you should never do this. Instead, always use sharp scissors. The theory being that a sharp surgical wound is healthier for the plant than the type of wound you inflict by essentially ripping the shoot out. That makes sense in theory. Furthermore, some of this advice recommends you keep sanitizing solution with you and dip the scissors into it between every plant, so you're not spreading disease from one to the next. Personally, I disagree with both of these for 2 reasons. The first is from practical experience. Mine has been that the tomato plant is a remarkably resilient thing, and no matter how I mangle it, the thing is going to keep going, and within a few days any scar I produce by pinching is going to heal, and I won't even be able to see scar tissue. This is true even when, as was the case here, I didn't get a clean break and pulled a strip of tomato stem skin off the leaf branch until it finally broke away. This is more annoying to me than it seems to be to the plants. As for the sanitizing solution, I disagree with that because it's impractical to keep a container of liquid with me. I can't imagine what type of sanitizing solution I'd be comfortable using on my plants, and, most importantly, if you have that much disease pressure, you should probably assess your growing techniques because you're doing something wrong. All that said, there are times when it is necessary to use scissors. At least on my homestead, I just can't keep up with the tomatoes, and, inevitably, there are going to be days when I go out to shoot prune, and there's a huge shoot that I somehow missed last time. When the shoots get big, it's easier to use scissors to cut them away. The bigger the shoot, the harder it is to break, and I don't want to be yanking too hard on a tomato plant because I might rip it off the twine or break the main stem. I've had these scissors for years and I only use them for this specific job, pruning tomato and cucumber shoots. The reason I like these is their extremely narrow point. This allows me to get the blades as close to the base of the shoot as possible. Ideally, you don't want to leave any little nub of a shoot. Scissors with a fine point allow you to get as much as possible. I like to do the trellis training before I cut the last of the side shoots. Wrapping the main stem around the trellis is stressful for the plant. Over the years, I've broken a number of stems during this process, and if you leave the side shoot, you can re-establish that as the main stem if you break it off. Once you successfully train the plant around the trellis twine, though, go back and get rid of those side shoots. The methodology for pruning shoots from cucumbers is exactly the same as that for tomatoes. Everywhere a leaf branch comes off the main stem, you will find a shoot trying to grow from that crotch. These need to be pinched or cut if they got away from you and are large, so the plant will grow up instead of out and put more effort into the cucumber fruit. Cucumber shoots do not grow as quickly as tomato shoots in the beginning of the season. However, once things heat up, they'll actually grow faster than tomato shoots, up to several feet in a couple days. Cucumbers, unlike tomatoes, will do their best to climb the trellis string with or without you. These tendrils are specifically evolved to grab onto whatever they find and anchor the cucumber. If this plant were growing along the ground, this tendril would have wrapped itself around the grass, or whatever else it found. All cucumbers, and indeed all plants in the cucurbit family, send out these tendrils. Some are better than others at climbing vertically. These cucumbers are specifically bred for growth in a greenhouse, which means, among other things, they're good at climbing vertically instead of sprinting horizontally. All that said, they still benefit from some training around the string. Gravity is a stronger force than the plant's instinct to climb, and, if I let this go unchecked, the plant would eventually grow fast enough that the tendrils wouldn't be able to reach out and grab the string.